Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. That worked all right in the end, actually. We're all in the right order, and I'm happy. Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk, guys. Great to have you back with us. Great to have Phil back with us. Julio, Keen. I know you're going to Seville tomorrow, aren't you, buddy?
Yeah.
So I bet you're looking forward to that one. Sounds great. Anyway, guys, get your comments in. We've got lots to talk about. A massive week for United this week, obviously, with a massive game tomorrow night. To get through to the semis, isn't it? And then, of course, later on this weekend, which we'll be talking about on Friday, Brighton in the FA Cup semi-final. So a really make or break. Not make or break. We've had a good season, but certainly a massive one. And very much looking forward to it. Just going to come to a few comments. And Robbie, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming and seeing us, buddy. Hello, Phil. Hello to you too, buddy. Right. Phil, great to have you with us, my man. I hope you've been really well. Are you looking forward to tomorrow night?
Yeah, very much so. I think, obviously, after last week's game, I think we was, brilliant for 45 minutes. The game probably should have been put to bed by that point. But I think, looking forward to it. I think Forest, I mentioned that on the other podcast the other day. I think Forest was a massive game for us in terms of, the way the game finished against Sevilla, the injuries, the bit of bad luck that we had with some of the bookings and suspensions and stuff. I think, it was a big moment for us really in the season. I think if that game hadn't have gone the way it did the other day, it could have had a really bad knock-on effect for sort of these really important games that are coming up. So it was great for us to sort of, respond in a positive way to that sort of, 2 late goals against Sevilla. I think, your Brunos and Eriksen's the other day were absolutely outstanding. And we needed them players to step up and sort of get us back on the winning sort of run. And I think we've shown that we've got more than enough quality in the squad to get a result. I just think with them 2 late goals, it sort of just made the tie a little bit more interesting. But for me, we've still got enough quality to get ourselves over the line. Although it should have been put to bed, as I said, with the way the game went for the majority of it. It was just disappointing. I was at the game. I sort of left around about the 80th minute, just before the first goal went in. So I actually left the stadium 2-0 up, and on the way back to the car.
Oh, man. So it's your fault.
Yeah, it was my fault. I took the girls for the first time, and it was all going through. And 2-0 up, I thought, it's a bit late for them because usually they're in bed by that point. So I said, right, come on, we'll get off. And then, just to see that it finished 2-2, I couldn't believe it. And then when I watched the goals back, it was just crazy. But, that's football.
Yeah. That is football. You're absolutely right. You know better than us, buddy. And, it was a poor defensive display in the end. And I'm glad you talked about the game at the weekend, actually, because I think it was one that we really had to win, as you said, and really we needed to it was a bit of a test of our character, if you will, trying to come back. We got Casemiro back and a few other things, and we needed it. And I really feel like it's one of those games that is a real turning point, perhaps.
Yeah.
I hope that obviously comes to us tomorrow night, and I hope we kind of keep continuing that in that run of form. And we're without Bruno Fernandes tomorrow night. Shouldn't have been the yellow card, but we are without him. It is what it is. But hopefully we got enough quality, as you say, with Eriksen back and a few other players. Hopefully that won't be too detrimental. Keen, good to have you with us, buddy. I know obviously you're going to be flying early tomorrow, so I do appreciate you being here with us. But how are you feeling about tomorrow night?
Same as last week. I'm nervous as hell. Julio would have been on the preview with me last week. I think, Seville, there's always a caveat when we play them. There's always drama. It's always a tough game. And I think tomorrow's going to be no different. But like Phil said, I think we can take hope from the fact that if you look at the first 45 minutes, we battered them. Like, we played them off the park. We really did. Obviously, but I think Bruno's going to be a massive miss tomorrow. But look, we've enough experience in this team, and even with the players like Maguire not coming in, like we have experience in here to hopefully get us through the game and get a positive result. But it's just Seville. There's something about them that even when they're playing badly, they just have. It's like, do you know when you have that bogey team? Phil obviously played at a very high level. All of us have played probably here at a decent level. There's always that one team that you come up against that just have your number.
You're too kind to me. I haven't played at any level, mate. I just like to watch.
Well, yeah, but whatever. Do you know, you just have that one team. You might be technically better than all of them. Do you know what I mean? You might have the better footballers. It's just they have something over you, whether it's a juju or whatever it is. And I think Sevilla have that over us. I can't explain it, what it is, but they always seem to get a positive result against us, regardless of how good we are. So look, hopefully that curse ends. Hopefully it's like the Drake curse eventually just comes to an end. And yeah, look, it's excited to be going. 1 o'clock, leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning to go to Dublin Airport, so it's going to be a bit of a rough one. But nevertheless, look, it's one of the biggest games of our season so far, and if we get through this, I think we'll go on and win the competition. Because, with no disrespect to Juventus or Sporting Lisbon, their styles of football, I think, look, we can beat the both of them. If you like, pound for pound, we can. It's just if we get through this, we get over our kind of mental block that we have with this team, then I think we can go far. I think we can win the competition.
Yeah, I think this is going to be, well, I mean, we could potentially play Juve. They were 1-0 up at the end, weren't they? So that would be a big test for us as well. But I think Sevilla have always been a very difficult team. Obviously, we'll roll back a couple of years in the final, and we've always struggled against Spanish opposition. And listen, there is absolutely no way that was a part on our mentality or anything. It was just that we got complacent, 2 defensive errors, and unfortunately we got found out a little bit, and we need to stop taking that for granted. But one thing I will say, with Eric Ten Hag, and I'm not making a comparison to any other managers in the last few years, you always feel like he's going to do something. You always feel like you're in good hands. And I feel like he will take this as a valuable lesson and go into the next game really sort of ready to sort of break records and ready to kind of get a good win in the Spanish country, in an away stadium. Julio, great to have you with us, buddy. Are you feeling the same as the boys? How confident are you for tomorrow night?
The problem with Sevilla is they win at home. They find a way regardless. Real Madrid in the Champions League, they hear that theme and they turn into a different monster. When Sevilla hear that, whoa, it's the exact same thing. So,
that was very angelic, mate. Thank you.
I'm just calling it as it is. To be honest, Sevilla have got to this stage, and every time they've got to this stage, they've won the competition. So I feel like if we win this, we're well in with a shout of winning it. But Sevilla away, like I already said, Sevilla find a way to win at home. So it will be a tough test. It feels like every week now we're saying that it's a must-win almost week for United. Sunday...
Bit of a cup final feeling every week, really, isn't it?
Every game this week. If we win the semi-final, we're through to Wembley for the final. If we win tomorrow, we're through to the semis of the Europa. All the teams around us dropped points last weekend, so we had to beat Forest. So I worry that, I'm not saying I'm getting fed up of saying it every week, but I worry it's going to start taking a toll on some of the players. Because if they're saying that every week and they're playing 3 games every 8-9 days, I worry it's becoming a problem. But you boys have touched it perfectly. Pound for pound, we can take the game to them. Okay, we haven't got Bruno Fernandes, and the defense is going to be a little bit... It's not going to be the lineup we wanted at the back. But we have to really... It's not just a football match, it's a mentality match as well. I think the complacency in the last match obviously didn't help. Rather than kill the game off, which we arguably should have done and probably could have done, we ended up going to Seville away with a draw. So I have full belief in Eric Ten Hag and the team to pull the result. But given that it's Sevilla, you can't help but worry because of their pedigree in the competition, their history in the competition, in terms of every time they've got to this stage, they've gone on and won the whole thing. So, yeah, it's a really... and considering there's the big match of the weekend as well, against Brighton. There's a lot going on, and I worry it will take a toll on the players a little bit.
Yeah, I think we all share that thought, and hopefully that's not the case. But we will obviously have to wait and see tomorrow night. So you guys touched on a few points actually. Firstly, Bruno Fernandes, obviously a massive player, played the most minutes in the top 5 leagues in the last 2 years since he arrived at United. Only Lionel Messi has had the same output in goals and assists for us. With him missing, Phil, and being a former striker yourself, who would you like to sit in that sort of number 10 role behind the strikers tomorrow?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think, Bruno's literally played every single game. So he's sort of, a mainstay for us, and he's Mr. Consistent. I think wherever he plays, he always puts a shift in. He always does, 7, 8 out of 10. So he's going to be difficult really to replace. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he lines up in the midfield. Whether he brings, Eriksen in and puts him there, and, Fred's not played many games, whether he thinks he's ready to come and step back in with maybe Casemiro and play Eriksen a little bit higher. It's going to be interesting. Again, it's going to be interesting, obviously, Martial, whether he can, keep playing games. I don't think he's meant to have played as many games and stayed on the pitch as long as probably he would have been. But obviously with Rashford's injury, I think he's been, shoehorned in a little bit early. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of lineup he goes with. Obviously, Anthony played really well on the weekend as well. He's been playing really well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, mate, to see how he goes. We've got a lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions. So, some of these players that maybe haven't been playing as much are going to have to step up and put in a big performance in order for us to, get to these last stages of these competitions that we're in, because obviously the other day it was just everything that could have gone wrong, seemed to go wrong in that second half, with the handball for Bruno. So that was in. Varane went off.
In answer to this question, Phil, sorry, were you able to?
Well, I didn't have an option, to be honest, because on the way back, when we was walking back to the car, obviously fans are pouring out the stadium, and there was a fella who had his phone up, like I'm obviously still watching the game as he was walking back to his car, and he was obviously getting a bit animated. So we knew obviously that Sevilla had scored, and then another groan had come through. So we knew sort of it had not ended the way we wanted it to. So yeah, unfortunately they knew. But to be fair, my little girl said at halftime, she was like, I spoke to Wayne at halftime. He came down and just had a chat to us, and my little girl predicted that they'd come back into the game for some reason. So she must have knew.
There you go. Yeah, unfortunately at the end, and we've left it obviously last minute. We left it into our hands really, and theirs really. It could go either way, and we really got to turn up. You kind of mentioned actually a couple of players, Anthony, Sabitzer, a few players that are in form at the moment, and I feel like in the first half of the last game, it was very much a domination within the midfield, particularly in the first half. Sevilla tend to play a 4-2-3-1, and obviously they're going to try and flood that midfield. But Julio, with that in mind, would you be in agreement with Phil? Who would your sort of midfield 3 be in setup tomorrow night?
The reports coming out, I think today or yesterday, that Sabitzer is trained. So I think we're going to see a very
Rashford, Sabitzer, and Luke Shaw, and a fourth. I can't remember. So we could see some of those players feature, which would be great. I mean, if we can get some minutes in Rashford, that'd be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think my only worry with, especially Rashford, we've seen him play with a broken back for a year and a half. So I just hope that he's not rushing himself back for the sake of it. Like we've seen reports for Saliba for Arsenal, apparently willing to risk a worse injury to play against City next week. But no, I think given Eriksen's performance of the weekend as well, the way he just slotted back in and as if he's not been away is very encouraging, because you partner that with Sabitzer being in form, playing a bit more progressively. I think we could see a very good midfield trio in Casemiro, Eriksen and Sabitzer.
Yeah, I think that's good points, well made. Jarvis makes a comment here, Keane. I'm going to come to you on this. It worries me that we rush players back from injury. I think that could be true. I think that obviously we always remember the bad times. You know, when you go out for a meal, you've had a bad meal, you'll talk about that a lot more, right? And it's a bit like when players coming back from injury, you sort of remember those ones. But I feel like a lot of teams have to do this. You know, we've had a very, very rigorous number of months now with lots and lots of games, and it is a worry. But do you agree with this comment? Do you think it is a bit of a problem for the club? I think over the years we've had this conversation about rushing players back a few times.
We definitely done it a lot under Ollie. He definitely rushed a lot of players back in many different occasions. But I think with Ten Hag's been slightly different. He's not rushed players back in at all. To be fair, I've heard like when Rashford's initial injury happened, I heard that he was going to be back potentially in the squad for this game and starting on Sunday. And with the reports that are coming out literally today, that seems to be the case. So look, if it's like that, then look, I have no problem with that. I think if you look at the front three that we started last week, I'd start them tomorrow because they didn't play poorly. They actually played well, you know, and they have everything. They have what it takes to break Sevilla down. Look, if the game's still in the balance with a half an hour to go and you need to stretch the game, Rashford is the man to bring on 100%. But I do look at Sunday and I think Rashford would be more suited to that game. Gives him a couple of extra days to get back. Like if you look at Sabitzer's injury, obviously wasn't too serious because he got injured in the warm-up.
Just a knock, wasn't it? Yeah, or a stretch.
It was just a knock, and like he's back in the squad today, so that would suggest to me that it was probably precautionary, you know, taking him out of the fire line because we've had so many injuries. So in fact, so like in that fact, I think we'd be fine. Like Luke Shaw's one, it was a bit longer than I expected, but he's there too. So look, when you actually look at it in the grand scheme of things, Barn, Garnacho, and Donny van de Beek, we're getting most of our players back now. You know, like, and even Jarvis mentions Fred there. Fred actually was only had a knock, but he's been in like more or less every match day squad since the Liverpool game. He just hasn't been playing since the Liverpool game because he had an absolute stinker. If we be completely, you know, upfront about that, that's the reason why he's probably hasn't played as many games since then. But look, am I worried about the squad? I always will be. You know, when you play this many games, injuries are given, especially with this fixture schedule. I hope whatever happens in the next couple of years, they never, ever, ever should do a Winter World Cup ever again. I'm not just saying this from a...
No, I think it was very much an anomaly, wasn't it? Very much a red herring, and that won't happen again. It's just unfortunate, and unfortunately, we've had to take a lot of the stick from it, haven't we?
Yeah, and it's not even us, Mark. It's every other team. Arsenal have picked up injuries coming into a Liverpool. Like, I hate them, but Liverpool have massively picked, you know, it's hindered them. Chelsea have had a couple of injuries. Like, you know, like really and truly, it's screwed a lot of teams over. And like at the end of the day, FIFA and UEFA have to be held accountable for that. But they never, you know, I suppose, take ownership of anything. But look, if we can get this squad fully fit for like the FA Cup semi-final, the last 6-7 games of the Premier League season, and we can coast by, get your Ericssons and Casemiros as much game time as possible, we're going to be fine. As long as Bruno Fernandes doesn't get injured, we'll get top four. If he stays fit, we'll get top four.
The Portuguese Magnifico, absolutely love that, man. We've had a lot of debates on Twitter, haven't we, recently, Keen, with Bruno and what he brings to the team and playing deeper and all this rubbish. And finally, people are starting to agree with us. If they, you know, why they weren't anyway, it was absolutely beyond me.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, mind-boggling indeed. Just want to say, actually, guys, quite a few of you watching really appreciate that. Considering we've clashed with the Champions League tonight, we really appreciate it being here. And with that in mind, I will be giving you score updates, or I'll try my very best just to keep you with us. All right. But at the moment, Inter are beating Benfica 1-0, 3-0 on aggregate, and it's 0-0 between Bayern and Man City. And I'll try and get those over to you as they come in. Yeah, Phil, just sort of going back a little bit with your days with Manchester United. If we're injuries have always been a concern, but how would the coaches and staff handle that? Would it be like a rotation thing, or would they do some other things that we may not be aware of? Is it always been this sort of problem, always talked about, and were players maybe rushed back then as well?
Yeah, I think depending on who your players were, obviously, you know, your top players, the ones who are, you know, mainstay, or the regular players, obviously they will get forced back maybe a little bit quicker than others because, you know, they want to get the consistency back. They want to get the settled back fours or midfields or whatever it may be back in. So yeah, I think it depends a lot on obviously the players really. You know, if it's just maybe a squad player who, you know, isn't playing regular, then they could probably, you know, leave it a little bit longer and make sure that they're fully fit so that they have got somebody there who can come back and be an option if the worst would happen. But yeah, I think especially this time of the season, you know, when all the big games now, you know, as Julio said there, every week now it's a cup final. So I think, you know, the manager is going to have to be forced his hand with some of these players because, you know, we've got loads of injuries, loads of suspensions, and we need to get our best players on the pitch if we're going to, you know, progress in the semi-final and the quarter-final of the cups that were left in. And obviously we need, you know, a strong 11 to keep picking up points in the Premier League because, you know, no game's an easy game, if you like, in the Premier League. So I think with that in mind, I think the manager's obviously trying to, you know, get everyone available as quickly and you know, as you know, sufficiently as possible because obviously you don't want to. I think it's a situation where you don't want to sort of push someone back in, you know, who's still nowhere near fit just for the sake of, you know, having that name on the pitch because, you know, if he's not going to be up to speed and he's not going to be able to offer anything, then there's no real point in putting someone on. But for me, yeah, you know, your Rashford, who's been outstanding this year, he's a massive plus if we can get him back and maybe give him a little bit of a run out tomorrow. In order for the game at the weekend, then that'd be great news. You know, Sabitzer wasn't 100% sure on him. Obviously, that's why I mentioned Fred potentially, you know, coming back in. But if he's back, then great. He did really well in that first leg. Obviously, got the 2 goals, so it'd be great to see him back. Luke Shaw, you know, he could be an option at centre half with you know his experience there that he's done well. So that could be an option maybe in the coming weeks. You know, with the injuries to Varane and Martinez, which is, you know, what a blow that is. Martinez is probably
couldn't have come at a worse time.
Yeah, for me, yeah, I think that is, you know, other than probably Bruno, I think Martinez would be the one player you'd you know, absolutely, you know, be disgusted with if it was him who got it, and it is. And, you know, he's been probably our best player this year along with, you know, Casemiro in terms of having an impact on the team and the way he sort of leads by example, his desire, his passion. And you know, the way he rubs off on other players has been outstanding. So it's a real shame he's obviously missing, you know, these big games now because he more than anyone probably deserves to, you know, be in these, you know, big games because as a player, that's the games you want to play in, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's listen, we've spoken lyrical about him for months. Absolutely wonderful player, and I think we were all probably in tears last week when he came off the field. And it was obviously nice to see his sort of countrymen carry him off. That was, you know, a nice sentiment, obviously, but fundamentally it doesn't win us the game. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, really disappointing. And I think, you know, as much as we laud Eriksen, Casemiro, and obviously Martinez, I think he's going to be a massive miss. And obviously this is a problem now that's happened 5 times, and we also worry about perhaps him recovering and it not happening again. You know, this is the 5th time that he's injured a similar or, you know, a similar area of the foot. And it is a little bit of a concern, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that isn't the case. Anyway, a good little segue there, Phil, because I was going to move on to Luke Shaw and the centre-back partnership pairing. So, Keane, I don't think well, in my view, I don't think he'll start Shaw by any means, but do you expect him to maybe come on at some point? And who would you start as your centre-back pairing, even though it might be obvious?
If Shaw's fit to go, I play him beside Maguire tomorrow. Like they've played with each other before, I think. For looking at balance in the back 4, I think playing Luke Shaw, their centre-back, is integral to the way we're going to play, especially playing out from the back tomorrow. Now, you could argue, could you go maybe Lindelof and Shaw, but I think, especially if there's a bit of aerial bombardment from Sevilla, you'd like to have Harry Maguire in there, I think, you know, for his strength.
Well,
and his
that could be an issue, really. That could be an issue, really. I mean, they might know that obviously it's going to be a problem for us, and that could be something that they target. You know, you saw in the second half in particular, they targeted David De Gea, didn't they? But knowing that our partnership is one that hasn't really played too many minutes together, that could be something they target as well now, right?
Could potentially, like, especially with early crosses and the fact that, like, the centre halves mightn't be used to playing with each other. But Shaw and Maguire have played a bit with each other this season. So from a balance point of view, I think I'd like to see two of them play. I think Luke Shaw, if you look at his defensive ability this season, like he's been brilliant. Like especially in 1v1 situations, there as well. Like he's really good 1v1. So I'd like to see him play centre half tomorrow if he's fit, because I think if you look at the way Diogo Dalot played last night at left back, not last night, Sunday, he was very good in the build up. As opposed to Malacia, like Malacia is very good defensively. Maybe he probably lacks in the build up. So I think in the final third, I think that's somewhere where he still needs to work on. So if Shaw is fit, I'd like to see a full back four, maybe Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, Shaw, and then Diogo Dalot on the left.
There was an amazing stat I saw actually, and you reminded me about Dalot just then. I was going to ask everybody in a minute what the back four would be. Dalot on the right hand side, if I think for United, 69 games or something, and very little goals, assist contribution. But on the left back side, and this is for various teams, I think he played 21 games there and still had 9 goals or assists within that time. That's quite an incredible difference, isn't it? And he's a right-sided player, but it definitely gives us that other option, doesn't it? Even though we got Malacia. So really interesting to see how they'll do that tomorrow night. Julio, I just want to come to you on your back four, really. I want you to sort of give me what you think will probably happen, but your ideal one with the players that are available tomorrow.
I'm still undecided because there's a couple of scenarios. For instance, if Shaw's not fit, it's obvious there's going to be Maguire and Lindelof. If Shaw is fit, who comes in next to him almost? On the one hand, you could say Maguire in the sense of he won't be available the weekend. I'm not saying Ten Hag will look towards that, but it might be wiser playing.
He'll have one eye on it, I think. Yeah.
It'll be wiser to play the person who's not playing at the weekend. But on the other hand, I believe Lindelof's reading of the game, especially in European football, is a lot better. So it's a very difficult one for. I think it'll be. I think we'll see a Maguire-Lindelof partnership, but I wouldn't be surprised on any scenario, to be honest. Whatever comes out, I'll sit there and I'll be like, fair enough. I think Dalot's always shown his versatility over the years, especially when Oli first came in. He was playing in like almost right wing at one point, right back. He played at left back for Porto. So the stat you've given there isn't surprising. I don't know whether it's the fact that when he's on the left side, he's able to cut in more and be a bit more productive in some way on his right foot.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think, you find that, especially with inverted fullbacks, not that Dalot is. You've seen it. Dennis Irwin, back in the day, could play either side, but he was strongest coming on the right. And whenever he played left back, it really allowed him to cut inside and do that a bit like Ashley Young as well on the wing. He's very good at cutting back inside and whipping balls in. So similar with him, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I think in terms of the left back spot, I think, do we know if Malacia is available for tomorrow?
He's in the squad, yeah.
Just because we didn't see him at the weekends. Well, at least I didn't see him playing or on the team sheet, annoyingly. But that's just from me being oblivious to what the subs bench was. So I think we'll potentially see a Malacia, and the right back spot is difficult as well. This is the problem. Some players are coming into form and some players are unavailable. So you don't know who's going to come in. It's a case of.
I think if you're looking at the back four, I think the most certain player you're seeing the back four tomorrow is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He's the dead cert start. 100%.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Phil. Oh, sorry. Go on. Finish off, buddy. Sorry, buddy.
No, I was simply going to say that I can see a scenario where Dalot plays based on his performance of the weekend at right back. Mm-hmm. But my personal preference, because of the context behind the game and how important the game is in terms of what's going to happen and what happens if they lose, and I think Wan-Bissaka will start.
Yeah, I think you're right. Phil, do you agree with the boys? Have you got any sort of differences with that? And who do you expect to start the back four tomorrow? What would you like to see?
No, I think I agree with Keane. I think if Luke Shaw's fit and available, I think he'd be the one to slot straight in at centre half. Probably alongside Maguire. I think just based on the directness of Sevilla, sort of, especially in that second half, I think he would probably be the best suited in terms of dealing with that. For me, I think left back Dalot, with the way he played against Forest at the weekend, I think he'll be kept in that position. I don't think the manager needs to sort of play around with that. I think when a player's playing well, he's just scored. He's kept a clean sheet. You just keep that going. And as Keane said, I think Wan-Bissaka's the most obvious choice at right back at the moment. I think he's doing really well. Which we probably wouldn't have thought and seen, 6 months ago. I think he was, a player that was probably looking to be moved on and pushed out the door. But the progress that he's made, again, he probably deserves a little mention, because I think his end product and his sort of ability on the ball has sort of improved massively as well. We all knew he was a great defender, and his 1v1 defence is probably up there with, one of the best in world football for me. So, yeah, at the minute he's doing really well.
Right.
With what we've got available, I think will be the manager's best bet, really. But again, as Julio said, who knows? It's all ifs and buts at the moment with players' fitness. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was Lindelof either.
Yeah, and you know what? I think obviously with the injuries, it is a major problem. But I think that the fact that a few of the players we've spoken about, Dalot, not sure if he was going to play, Malacia, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the middle two, probably a good problem to have. And I'm sure Ten Hag will relish something like that and be able to do what he needs to do and hit the nail on the head. So we will have to wait and see. Get your comments in, guys. Obviously, great to have you with us. Really appreciate that. And get liking and subscribing. Quite a few of you on Twitter as well. Come over to youtube.com/The Weekly Armchair and get your comments in. We want to be able to read those out. In the last 12 games, Sevilla have only won 3, but they've all come away from home and only been 1-goal margins. Do you think that could have an impact or help us tomorrow, Keane?
Yeah, well, look, 1-goal margins, you're probably looking at and say like that they don't blow teams away. I think that's one thing you say about Sevilla. They don't really blow teams away. And even when they're winning all like the Europa Leagues under Emery, they didn't really blow teams away. But like I look at them. I think what they will do is they'll make it tough for us. They'll be physical. They'll play direct, and they'll get in our faces. They'll want to see if we're up for it. I think tomorrow what will really come down to is the experienced players like your Casemiros, your Christian Eriksen's, David De Gea. They're going to have to be brave. They're going to have to be brave. And I think that's what's going to win United the game tomorrow. We have to pump our chest out and play like we're the bigger club, we're the better team. Mm-hmm. And that's no disrespect to Seville. Like it isn't. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way, but we're Manchester United at the end of the day. We're the third best team in England right now. People doesn't lie. That's what we are. And if you look at, we've beaten Barcelona this season, who are a better team than we've beaten Manchester City, beaten Arsenal, beaten Liverpool. We've beaten all better teams in this team. Yes, they do have the hoodoo overs or whatever you want to say, but when you have players like Jadon Sancho, and you have players like Anthony, Casemiro, these players should really come out and really show their quality. Like, yeah, I am concerned, right, about how streetwise Sevilla are. I said it last week when we had Jay on here, and like and Julio come back. I really did air my concern, but when you have the quality that we do have, we should be putting them away. And I'm just praying and hoping and praying Martial can just get on the ball. We can get him on the ball as much as we can, get fluidity going in our front three. We can do the business. It's just we have done in previous seasons. We can't shit the bed. We can't afford that.
Say how you really feel, King.
Oh, if I did, no, that's a different story. What we've seen in previous seasons under Solskjaer, we did about 3 semi-finals where we faltered, where we shouldn't have. Wembley comes to mind against Chelsea in lockdown. Like we shot at that day. You look at Villarreal in the Europa League final a couple of years ago. Should have won that game, but again, we got overawed by the occasion. Yeah, we just can't let these previous defeats get into our heads. And I do think tomorrow having Casemiro and this team and some of the other experienced players, it should help us. But football isn't one on paper, unfortunately.
No, absolutely right. Yeah, great comments, guys. Really appreciate that. Just coming to obviously the midfield very, very quickly. I know we spoke about it and touched upon it earlier. Are we all in agreement? Sorry, are we all in agreement? Casemiro, Eriksen, and Sabitzer tomorrow. Does anyone think different? Anyone you guys want to come in and think different with that, or?
No, I don't think.
I agree. I did mention Fred, but that was just on the initial thought that Sabitzer was still maybe 50-50, because I think he would be somebody who may come in and obviously he's not played a lot of football, so I was thinking it could be a game where he comes back in and gives us that energy in the middle of the park. But as I say, if Sabitzer bit, I'm all for that.
Did Scott Tomley travel?
I think he did. Yeah, I think he did. I'll double check that now, but I'm absolutely sure I read something like that today. So we could see him. I mean, you rightly pointed out, Fred, there. I think we haven't seen much of him recently. And I think that it's someone like him to really sort of control the midfield. And I don't mean control like an Eriksen control, but have that kind of tenacity and to charge the players down. As I said earlier, I really feel that this game is going to be one in the middle, and especially against the Spanish side. So I think Fred could certainly be an option, and we might even see him maybe further forward. And with Sabitzer coming back from a knock, that could be a possibility. And you sort of see Eriksen dropping back a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. Get your comments in, guys. Obviously, we want to keep going through those. So let us know what you think the midfield three will probably be, or maybe something different. Give us a different formation. Coming to the front three then. We've spoken and kind of touched upon Anthony in a good run of form at the moment, playing very, very well, and obviously scored at the weekend. And Sancho really sort of starting to come into his own a little bit more. Rashford potentially on the way back. But Phil, I wanted to come to you about Martial. We've seen a little bit more of him recently, sort of slowly being drip fed back into the team. But how impressed have you been with him since coming back into the team in the last few weeks?
Yeah, really impressed. I think, what's impressed me the most has been his sort of link up with other players, his hold up play. He obviously could have scored that header against Forest the other day, which is probably the only missing thing at the moment. I think if he gets a goal, that'd probably be the icing on the cake. Again, really impressed with his attitude. He seems to be, working hard. Obviously, he's not 100% fit, so hopefully, the fitter he gets, the more sharpness and stuff we'll see out of him, and hopefully he'll keep improving. But I think at this moment in time, with Rashford not being available, I think he's going to be massive with the way that we're going to play against Seville. We need somebody who can hold that ball up and we can play into, and the ball will stick. I think we've seen Weghorst a few times when he's made little cameos recently. He's not the best at holding the ball up back to goal. It sometimes bounces off him and it's breaking down. And I think that's where these teams, especially at home when the crowds are up, the sort of transitions are massive in these types of games. So if we can get the ball into Martial and start playing off him and start some attacks through him, then for me he's looked really good. And as I say, hopefully the more game time he gets, the better he will get.
Yeah, I think great points well made there. And I'm a massive fan of Martial. I have certainly given his criticism over the years. But I think on his day, he is one of the best dribblers in the league. His low center of gravity seems to keep it not too far away from his feet. And his link-up play, hold-up play is absolutely brilliant. He brings players into the game. Something that we were seeing from Weghorst since January, before Martial's come back. And I think actually, since Martial's come back into the team, we've seen that kind of rise of ability with that, haven't we? And I think his finishing's regressed a little bit. I think he needs a bit of confidence there, but scored at the weekend, and would love to see him start again tomorrow. Julio, with that in mind, buddy, what would your front three be? And I know that obviously we've come to the defence before and ifs and buts and all that kind of thing, but first three players that come to your mind on the left, on the right, and as the number 9.
I actually don't think there'll be a change to the front three. I think Rashford will start the game on the bench. I don't think he'll start. I think that front three last couple of games, they've been quite good. They've all shown really good signs. So it's really good to see all three of them come into their own a little bit. So I don't think we'll see a change in that front three.
So did Sancho start at the weekend? I can't remember now. Anthony, Martial, Sancho were the three starters, weren't they? So you would keep the same three, would you?
Yes.
Yeah, great stuff. Kane, you wanted to come in about Martial quickly, and then I want you to give me your front three, please, buddy.
Yeah, I'll give you my front three straight away. I said it earlier. I think it's unchanged. As much as I love Rashford to come back in, I just think it's better just to keep him for Sunday. Big pitch in Wembley. Brighton playing a high line. I'd rather have a nice, fresh Marcus Rashford. Against Brighton on Sunday. But on Martial, I think there's a couple of things. I think obviously tomorrow's against Sevilla. He was on loan there last season. Their fans were booing him off the pitch and all that crack. Towards the end of his spell. So I'd like to see Martial going there tomorrow with a point to prove, with kind of a chip on his shoulder almost, to go out and obviously try to prove the Sevilla fans wrong. Also, you mentioned I think his finishing has regressed. I think one thing Solskjaer said about him, he said he'd like to see Martial kind of score more ugly goals. Like the tap-ins and like the scruffy goals. And that's one thing even during Solskjaer's time didn't improve. I'd like to see that more of Martial. Like when you see Martial finish a ball, it's always like they always look crisp. It's always that type of finish, but there's none like. Do you see the way Haaland scores goals? So that type of way. Now I'm not asking
or misses penalties like he has done tonight.
Martial doesn't miss penalties, but like the other way Haaland scores by any means necessary. I'd like to see Martial kind of add that to his game, like getting into them little positions where look, you might get hurt. But you're going to score a goal. I think I'd like to see Martial do that a bit more. And look, I know he's probably on borrowed time at Man United in these next kind of this next month or so, or 6 weeks, depending if we
make or break the next few months for him, isn't it? Really, I really hope it does come into his own. So I think he's an excellent option. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, look, the next 6 weeks I think is make or break for him. I think it really is. But I think look for him, he just needs to get a run of games. I think then we see more consistent Martial. I think all about for him, it's always about playing enough games. But if you look at the last, let's say, 2.5 years, his body's broke down on him. And it almost reminds me when Saha got them injuries towards the end of his United time. Phil would have been obviously there when Luis Saha was picking up them injuries. He had actually a really good spell in 05-06, and then the start of the 06-07 season, then he picked up the knee injury. It kind of reminds me of that. Looking at Martial, like he has all that ability in the world, but his body's just letting him down right now.
Yeah,
I think quickly just jumping in, Keane, on your point there about obviously Martial, scoring more of the, tap-ins and them sort of ugly type goals. I think there's certain players and certain strikers that are just born with that natural instinct of being in the right time. I think Anthony Martial is not that kind of player, and I don't think that's something that you can really teach somebody. I think that's just ingrained in you from being, a kid, and it just comes natural. You have certain strikers that have that knack and that instinct of just putting themselves in the right place. I get what you say about him being a little bit more aggressive and a bit braver at times and being, wanting to score a goal. He doesn't really strike me as that kind of player that would put his head in where it hurts to try and get on the end of a cross. And that's not me being, critical of Martial. He's a great player, but I just think sometimes, when you look at a player and the sort of characteristics they have as a player, he just doesn't come across to me. And as you say, when you watch his goals, all of them are sort of like, really cultured finishes, like curling ones into the corner and, nice classy goals. I don't think he's a type
keeper,
I don't think he's that kind of player. And that's not a criticism. It's just, there's every player is different. I just don't feel as though he, at this point in his career could maybe, even improve that type of thing to add into his game. I think, you see strikers over the years who have done it from, get the get-go. They always do it season in, season out. Somebody like Martial, it's going to be a difficult one to try and, get that into his game, if you like. And I'm not criticising him by any stretch by that. I just think it's, just speaking from experience, like you've either got that or you've not really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm pleased you came in on that. I was going to ask you because Martial's a funny one, really. He's sort of not a 9 and not a 10, is he? And with that, I think he doesn't really get into the sort of poacher's area to do those ugly goals. And consequently always scores the sort of more extravagant or prettier goals, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Would you agree with that?
100%. And I think, as you just touched on there, I think because over the course of his career at Man United, he's played in a couple of different positions. Whereas, you see these seasoned strikers that are playing, off the shoulder as a number 9 every season. That's their bread and butter. Them type of goals, getting in the positions every week. Whereas, as you say, he's played on the left, he's played on the right, he's played down the middle. So, when you play in a various different amount of positions, you don't get that sort of rhythm in your game, and you don't have that sort of routine of being in the same positions on a weekly basis or a yearly basis or whatever. So, yeah, I think for me, that is why, the goals haven't really flowed for Martial, because, he's not in that mindset of, right, this is what I do. This is me every week. I'm playing every game, because obviously he's had a lot of injuries, and you don't get that sort of continuity and in your game, so I think that's been a bit of a hindrance to him. But as you say, on his day, when he turns up, he's a match winner. He can glide past players for fun. At the moment, he's playing really well. He's looked sharp when he's come back. He's linked the play.
Yeah, he has.
And for me, he's going to be a massive player for us tomorrow if we're going to get anything out of the game, because, as I say, you need someone to hold that ball up and, bring other players into the game, especially in a hostile atmosphere away from home. So,
yeah. Absolutely spot on. And Bayern Munich are absolutely all over Man City at the moment. They've just missed a couple of chances, almost an open goal. And I think Sane missed a massive chance earlier. So hopefully, with that in mind, they might get a few goals and maybe take them through into extra time. We will keep you updated, but we're going to be wrapping up very, very shortly. Inter Milan have conceded against Benfica, so it's 1-1 at the minute, but obviously 3-1 on aggregate. It looks like they'll probably go through. Jarvis makes a really good point here, and I want all of you to sort of put your 2 pennies in about this, really. I believe Martial has improved that part of this game. He's bulked up and gotten more physical, and this could be down to maybe the reason for his injuries. We saw it with the way that he won the ball at the first goal versus Forest. I think a really good point there. Right, we're going to come to score predictions then, and first goal scorer, and then I think we'll wrap up, guys. But I'm really appreciate you guys coming on tonight. Really, really great stuff. And Phil, as always, great to see you, buddy, and giving us your sort of first-hand experience. Always really, really great. So I'll come to you first then, Phil. Your score prediction tomorrow, and you can be as optimistic as you want. And then your first goal scorer, please, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I think, we will probably concede tomorrow. I think it's going to be a difficult game in terms of with certain players we've got missing, and the ascendancy that they've got after the last 10 minutes from the first leg. So I think that they will score, but I think we will have enough to just get ourselves over the line. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, and I'm going to go for first goal scorer. I'm going to go actually for Martial. I think, as Keane just mentioned, he was on loan there. He's probably got a point to prove. He wants to go back and show them that, he was a good player, and that probably just didn't get enough opportunities or whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a Martial 2-1 win.
You know what? It's mad, actually. You've both said it tonight about him on loan at Sevilla. You forget that. Honestly, I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten that he'd gone on the 6-month loan last season at Sevilla. It just didn't occur to me. Mad that. But yeah, let's see what he can do. And I hope he does, as Keane pointed out earlier, with the fans and how they sort of treated him, really. Bags a goal. Bags hat-trick. Let's be really optimistic and starts as it means to go on. 2-1 win then. We'll come back to this obviously another time for sure. And I want everyone that sort of watches this now or watches it late to give us your predictions as well, what you think and your first goal scorer, and perhaps we can have a little laugh and joke about it next time round. Julio, over to you, buddy.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Phil, to be honest. I was predicting a 2-1 win and a Tony Martial goal. I did want to ask Phil though, in your career, I don't know if Martial has that about him where I think a part of him from last season at Sevilla, part of it will play in his mind and he'll want to go there and prove a point. But do you reckon, regardless of what they're like as people, do you reckon all strikers, all forwards have that about them where they go back to somewhere where maybe they didn't work out, and part of them will be driven because of previous
Having a
failures
point
elsewhere?
to prove.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think I've, not at the same scale, but I've certainly played for clubs and, it's maybe not worked out and I've gone back there, and it's just subconsciously sometimes as well. You just naturally, want to go back and prove a point, whether you've, had a good time or a bad time there. You want to show them that either A, you've still got it and that you can go and still deliver, and B, if it didn't quite go well, you want to go back and prove that, when I was there, I didn't maybe get the opportunities or you didn't see the best of me. So 100%, I think Martial will definitely be wanting to prove a point, and yeah, that'll definitely be in the forefront of his mind for me.
Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat as Phil with the 2-1 win with a point to prove Anthony Martial goal.
Copycat. I wanted to see something different, but there we go. Yeah, maybe. To be fair to you, I probably would have said something similar. I will do at the end, but I'm going to change it slightly. But I'd love to see Martial score as well. I think we're on the Martial hype train tonight, aren't we? Keno, over to you then, buddy. What are you thinking?
First of all, I'm predicting a massive hangover Friday morning. First of all. Second of all, I'm going to go 3-0 United. I think we're due a win against them, and look, I think for me, if we go there and make a statement, get a goal early, we'll shut their crowd up, and I think we'll coast. And we'll win 3-0. And goal score prediction, first goal scorer, I'll go Anthony. He's been scoring goals today. He's been on fire. And yeah, it's just great that people were comparing to Nunes and Mudryk and all these players somewhere. In fact, Anthony's been better. Look, he's been scoring in big games this season.
Love him.
And I think he's never going to justify £90 million. I'll just say that straight. He's never going to justify that price tag. But we got
nobody's worth that. Nobody's worth that.
Not unless your name is Harry Kane. Other than that, no, I don't think most of those are worth.
I really don't agree with the whole sort of motive of price tag and all this. I think it's a load of bollocks, quite frankly. And sometimes Harry Maguire, I think he's actually been a very good defender for us. I know he's had a poor season, as did everyone. 80 million is too much, absolutely right. But we were desperate for a defender. We were going up against the likes of City, and let's not forget, 67 goals to 30 odd in the first season is a huge improvement, and I think he's a great option to have. Same with Anthony. He's chalked up the goods. He scored some wonderful goals, scored in his debut. Is doing so much for the team, the tracking back and all of that, and this whole how much, even with Mudryk, like we can see, he hasn't been his best, but the £100 million price tag is just nothing. I don't care about that. Do you know what I mean? It's a really, really poor way of making a point about a player. Do you know what I mean? But that's just my opinion. Right. So with that in mind, then, yeah, I'm going to go with 3-1. And I'm not going to say Martial. I was going to say Martial, but these boys stole that from me with their predictions. So there you go. But I'm going to say Anthony with the first goal. But yeah, 3-1. I think we'll concede as well. I think Phil's absolutely spot on with that. It's not our natural defensive partnership. It might be a bit of a makeshift back forward, I think. Sorry?
What minute is Casemiro getting booked?
64.
64. Phil?
No, I think it'd be a bit earlier than that. I think he'll put one on Rakitic. I think they had a little bit of...
yeah, they had that, didn't they? Yeah.
From the Barcelona, Real Madrid. Yeah, I think about 25, 30 minutes he'll put one on it.
25, 30 minutes. Yeah, don't put any bets on, guys. These guys haven't got a clue. But anyway, just a quick question for you. Finally, good question here by Jarvis. Jarvis is going to be coming on Friday. He's going to be part of the preview setup. I believe it's Friday. Of course, tomorrow night I'll be doing the reaction with Stu, Jamie and Fred. A really, really good panel. So please come back for that as well. But yeah, Phil, just one last question for you, buddy. Are you considering a career as a coach manager? I see you have the UEFA B license.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously that is sort of my next step when I retire, which isn't too far away now. I think that's obviously something that I'm passionate about. I love football. I I did actually go into Carrington about a week ago.
Yeah, you did say to me, I remember.
Yeah, so I went in and just did a little chat, obviously, with some of the academy and the reserve team about obviously my story with the crash and stuff like that. But I did speak to a few of the coaches in there about obviously my passion and my will to want to get into the coaching side of things. So fingers crossed there may be some potential with going back in at United maybe and trying to get my UEFA A license done in the near future. So yeah, just have to obviously watch this space on that. But yeah, that is my sort of hope. And I think, the way that Man United look after their own, it could be, something that, potentially is something in the pipeline for, in the near future.
That's amazing. Yeah, keep us, let us know with that. Obviously, we're all interested in seeing that. I saw your tweet as well, obviously, about that. And yeah, good luck, buddy. And what an amazing thing to be able to go to Carrington as and when you want and talk to all the academy. That's amazing stuff. Right, guys, we're going to win there. Obviously, half time at the minute, second half. Going to be going soon, so enjoy the rest of those, and hopefully we see a massive Bayern Munich win. We don't want them to get to the next round, that's for sure. But yeah, Phil, King, Julio, it's been great to have you on, and Phil, obviously great to have you as always. Yeah, big one tomorrow night. Obviously, King's back on Friday for the preview. A couple of debutants there as well, and then of course the reaction at the weekend for another massive game. But for those of you who got involved tonight, really appreciate your time and thanks for coming to watch us. But until then, we'll see you again tomorrow night.